Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Quarantined Happy Hour, the unfiltered podcast for those who are not easily offended. I'm your host, Anais Lucia, and today's topic is going to be about neediness, how to not be needy or stop attracting needy people. Because you're in one of those categories, maybe. You don't have to be, but you might be in one of those. I am in the attracting needy people category. I just attract them. I've attracted them for my whole life. I don't know why. So we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. If you're not sure if maybe you might be needy, whether it's in a friendship or a relationship, hopefully you can learn something from this episode. But before we get started, this happy hour, I always have to have a little drink. This is kind of my release from the week. I don't drink a lot, in case you think I'm some alcoholic. I pretty much only drink for the podcast, and sometimes I don't film them every week. So today I am drinking the Barefoot Red Moscato, and it's super delicious. In case you don't know, I like to say super a lot when something is really good. So, oh my gosh, it's so good. And we also have a special guest today. I'm really excited. So let's welcome our special guest for today. He is the founder of Make Him Yours and Australia's #1 dating and relationship coach. Welcome, Mark Rosenfeld. Woo!
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here. Yeah, it's great we've been friends for a long time now, so it's great to see your face again.
Oh, yeah. Through quarantine, little quarantine reunion.
Yeah.
So let's tell everyone what time is it? Where I am right now, it's 7:30 p.m. So where you are?
It is 9:30 on a Monday morning.
Yeah, so I'm drinking, but...
She's drinking. She's getting smashed on a Sunday night. I'm here on the protein waters on my Monday morning. So cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Virtual cheers. Woohoo, happy hour. All right, so go check out his channel. I'm going to put all his links in the show notes and video description if you're watching on YouTube. So before we get started on the topic, I like to ask my guests what I call my quarantine questionnaire. It's just rapid fire questions. No. It's just 5. I actually shortened it for you because I think we're going to be talking for a while, so I didn't want to make it super long. So I'm going to give you 5 rapid fire questions. Okay. So ready? And
yes. Go.
What do you miss the most about life before quarantine?
Gym.
What's your drink of choice during this time?
You want me to be honest?
Yes.
Water. So boring. I know. That's literally all I drink anytime ever.
Well, that's good. It's keeping your skin looking good and hydrating. Yeah.
I try.
What have you learned about yourself during quarantine?
I've learned I can be pretty resilient, which has been a good lesson. I've learned that I can find a way, when I really want to do something, I can figure out a way and a means to work around a problem. And I've also learned that I tend to, I guess I'm pretty good at staying on my own path and just kind of running my own race. It's been good with quarantine to have to, in quarantine, if you've had stuff that's been kind of simmering below the surface, that stuff might be coming up for you now. And I think a little bit came up for me, but it's been good just handling it and realizing, hey, I can stay on my own path. I can adapt. I can make life work for me. And it's just been really good connecting with people through quarantine and finding a sense of gratitude for things I didn't previously appreciate as well.
Okay. And what is the first thing you will do once quarantine is over?
Get to a music festival. Oh. We're aiming for EDC Las Vegas in October, so let's see if we can make that a reality.
Hopefully a music festival where everyone's been tested. Okay.
That would be ideal.
That is what I'm nervous about. I'm like, because I was talking to a friend about this. I'm like, when I go on a date with somebody, I'm going to want to know if they're good.
They've been tested, but it has such a different meaning now.
I want to test myself too. So that way, if I have it, but I'm asymptomatic, I'll stay home, don't go on dates. But then that way, if I don't have it, I can be like, girl, girl. No, it's gonna be a guy because I don't think girls. I'm like, I'm good.
Oh, so
I'm
some
good.
things have changed since we last spoke.
I
Gone the other
realized a
way now.
lot. No, I'm just kidding, during quarantine. Okay.
What
Because
has Anais learned about herself? Well, I've started going for girls more so than men these days. That's been a nice shift.
oh my god. No, because I'm like, girl. I'm usually not like guy.
Girl, I've been tested. What you talking about this virus? We can make
I,
out.
I've
Girl,
done
it'll be
that to
fine.
guys. I've done that to guys before because I'm so used to be like girl, and I'll tell a guy friend like, "Hey, girl." He's like, "Girl." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah, I'd be like, well, what was that? What was that?
Yeah, I was being a little
Excuse
sassy. Sorry.
Call me a girl. What was that?
Okay, so I didn't want to talk about neediness in this topic like just on my own, because then people probably think I'm crazy, like I'm not an expert. Why am I talking about this? But it is. But the reason I didn't want to talk about it is because I have a lot of experience with this. Because just my whole life, well, first of all, like during quarantine, yeah, you realize a lot of stuff. And one of the things I realized is like pretty much every boyfriend I've had has been like super needy. They're either like needy or a bit narcissistic. So that's I'm trying to like not attract that anymore, but it's kind of hard. Even I need friends too. I've had so many needy friends. I've had friends who got mad at me because I didn't reply to their text that same day. And just like crazy stuff like that. I'm like, why do I keep attracting like these people who just like want so much? Because I don't want that to keep happening. So I've kind of been looking up, why that has happened to me, and also like why I don't want to act like I'm just so perfect, because there has to be maybe like something that I'm doing that's attracting them. So I'm like, what am I doing? Or also why it makes me so irritated, because I get very irritated with like when people like to put any pressure on me to like reply to a text right away, or they get upset. I'm like, what? And I'm just like, why does it upset me? And because I actually started thinking about that because of something you said on a live stream, with I think Matt, dating coach, his name's Matt.
Yeah,
in the live stream, and then you said something about that, and I was like, yeah, why does it bother me so much? And I think for me, it's because when I was younger, like I like my space was not respected, my independence. Like I had to like give up so much for other people, like for my siblings. I had to do everything they wanted to do, and I could never do anything that I wanted. And if I wanted privacy, like my family would get really mad at me. They're like, no, you have to like no privacy. So now like I'm like, I need my space. If anyone tries to encroach on my space, I'm like, no, I need it. So that's kind of like I think why I'm not why it bothers me so much. So so but I also noticed that I feel like a lot of needy people, like they're not self-aware, because when I try to like say things kind of in a gentle way or make them realize, it's like I don't know how to do it because they don't realize it on their own. So it's really difficult. So that's why I wanted to do this podcast and have you on and see if maybe like anyone listening, maybe they don't realize they have these tendencies and like try to work on it, just like I'm maybe trying to work on like maybe setting boundaries or things like that too. So right, I wanted to start off with just like basic like how to recognize that somebody is needy, or like maybe if you don't even know you're needy, how can you be like, am I doing this? Like what should a person look for?
Yeah, it's exciting. There's a lot to unpack here around these concepts. And so neediness, you said, what was your first question? Can you just repeat the wording for me?
Oh, about just like how to know if somebody is like, I guess recognize that somebody is needy, or just you yourself, like if you don't like what to ask yourself, like you're needy.
Yeah, cool. So how to recognize it in yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about neediness and needs is first of all, it can be a relative concept, which is to say your example was brilliant there, where you said, I didn't have my space respected as a child. I had to give up I had to do what other people wanted to do a lot of the time. And a client, very similar story recently. She spent a long time single, and this is a beautiful young woman. She's early 30s, I think she is, and she hasn't had a relationship in 9 years, and that's quite unusual for an attractive extrovert. You don't see that all the time. And yeah, when we did a bit of a deep dive, we found that her mother never respected her space, and so really her calibration. And I don't know if you've talked about attachment styles before on the podcast, or if you have any knowledge of attachment styles. Attachment styles is kind of how we attach to people. which is, do we kind of lean away, which is avoidant? Are we more likely to lean in, which is anxious, aka needy? Or are we pretty centered in our approach?
Okay.
And what you'll find is that if you've had parental upbringing experiences where your space hasn't been respected, where you've been fine for connection, but you've had to create a lot of space, you've had to do work to create space, and you've had people infringing on your space, you'll tend to lean away from intimacy naturally in your life with what we call a more avoidant attachment style. And you see this a lot in men, but it absolutely happens in women as well. I think men cop a bit more in the media and stuff for being avoidant, but I definitely see it in women, in lots of clients too, in that they're always keeping their space, right? These are the people that they're always wanting to be they're always wanting to be the lean out person in the interaction. And so the reason I say neediness is a relative concept is because depending on the combination of the two people, to someone who's particularly avoidant, just about anything will seem needy, right? If you have someone who's not had their space respected for years and years, and a man who's constantly leaning back, even a woman who just wants a hug or wants to chat to him each day is going to seem needy relative to him, right? Whereas you might even be able to put an even less quote-unquote needy woman with him who's even more standoffish, and he would then, of the two of them, be the needy one.
Okay.
So neediness is a relative concept depending on the two individuals and where their attachment styles sit. I'm fairly centered with mine, but I've definitely experienced times where I've had a woman who's been much more avoidant. I can sense she's pulling away, just trying to keep me on the edge, and I start to feel like the needy one in the interaction. Versus I've had other interactions with a woman who's way too full on, puts lots of obligations on me, and I'm now the avoidant one, the one leaning back. So I think first of all, you've got to check in with yourself, and you can do attachment style tests online for like $7, $8, $9. They're super cheap, but it's good to kind of get a handle on what's your standard point, where are you sitting along that spectrum. And sometimes, honestly, if I take a client through an exercise where we say, okay, like everything seems needy to you, then for her, she has to get back comfortable to the point where she can understand that there are needs that she's allowed to meet. There are needs that a guy can lean on her for, that doesn't make him needy. She's got to kind of readjust her nervous system to whatever the type of relationship she wants.
Okay. Can I tell you what I think an example of what I think is too needy and see if you think I'm crazy?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So this is more of a friend one, okay? Because I have friends that I've had since, like my closest friends are friends that I've had since I was a kid. Like my childhood friends, they don't need me to text them every single day, and we can still not see each other for years. We see each other and we're good. Like, but I've had other friends who, like, they'll get you exchange numbers because you get along, and then like the next day, hey, how are you? What's up? It's like, just like, how are you? Like, they don't actually want to make plans, and like it's like that every day, like just a hey, how are you text, and then like if you don't reply right away, or that I've had people get mad at me because I don't reply within like an hour or that same day, and I'm like, sometimes I go to sleep early, sometimes I'm busy, and then they get mad at me, and I'm just like. And I have other friends, like, maybe I don't reply to them in, like, 2 or 3 days because I'm trying to, like, respond properly to, like, their long text, and I want to take time. And so, like, is that unreasonable if I think it's too needy for somebody who wants that's the friend, not, like, a boyfriend. That's a little bit more understandable, but, like, a friend. Someone who's just your friend, and they get mad at you if you don't respond within an hour or a day.
Well, here's the thing. It's not a question for me to answer because you're entitled to feel that way however you feel. I can't tell you what should be needy for you. You get to decide that, right? There's no right or wrong. If you want a guy to text you every hour on the hour, you are entitled to that.
But you should find a guy who likes that, right? You can't.
Right. Now, I will say this. I will say you've got to picture what is your ideal, whether it's a friendship or relationship, and you've got to have a clear image of, okay, what do I want to be my norm? right? Because there are couples that expect, I've been with women who say want a good morning and good night text every morning, every night. And for me personally, that's not really the way I operate. So I probably won't gel super well with those types of women. But are they needy? Well, relative to me, maybe yeah, but not to the next guy. Right. So you've got to have an image of, okay, this is the type of friendship that I want to set up. This is the type of relationship. This is kind of roughly how much I want to talk to someone, and know where your own needs and norms will sit at. And then you'll get challenges. And it sounds like this is what you've been experiencing. You get challenges from people with different frames. You get challenges from the person that wants every day or every hour responses. And you'll get different people trying to impose their version of the frame onto you. And that's where boundaries are super important, because you're never obligated to respond. You're never even obligated to explain yourself, right? If someone says, "Oh, you should text me back," you don't have to do that. I mean, you can if you want to explain yourself, but a lot of empaths get really stuck in having to explain their actions. They have to explain why I didn't text him back, or I have to explain. You don't have to answer the question you're asked.
And now I've actually told people, I'm like, I don't have to explain what I'm doing or why I didn't do this, and you shouldn't either, because we're adults. You should, like, I don't get met, like, if I text someone and it's not an emergency, if they don't get back to me in like 2-3 days, who cares? Like, I have a life. I don't get upset. And people like don't understand that. But I was reading that could be another reason, because not just like that, I'm not only attracted like needy people, but also just literally like stalker dudes, because and I was like, why is that happening? And I realized a lot, like pretty much every time that happened, it's because I was nice. And it's like, or I guess I was too nice, too giving, and I guess people who are like
Good
that
learning.
attract people who, I guess, maybe they're not used to people being nice, and then that one person's like nice to you, and they blow it way out of proportion. They think they're like in love. It's like, dude, I was just being nice. So it's like, it's kind of hard now, because I feel like there's been times where I want to be nice, but I can't, because I'm like, oh, if I'm nice, or if I'm in my masculine, I try to solve and fix things for people. They're like, oh, she's gonna do everything for me, cool, and then they're just getting really attached. I'm like, oh shoot. So now I have to like resist. If I want to be nice or do something for someone, I'm just like, okay, I have to let them like figure it out on their own, because if I do everything for them, they're gonna be like too dependent on me, especially if they're adults. I feel like, okay, I'll help. If I want to help people, I'll just help children and animals. not adults, because they need to like be able to do things on their own.
Do things themselves. And I mean, sometimes niceness gets confused again by empaths, which is being nice is helping someone solve their problems, or being nice is protecting someone. And in many cases, that theoretical niceness can have the opposite effect. It's like if you don't want to reject a guy, for example, a lot of empaths struggle with just being like clean, no, I'm not interested, and just making a simple sort of statement like that, because they want to do it in a nicer way.
Yeah.
But the niceness actually denies the guy the feedback, the honest feedback that might inspire him. If I get rejected, not in a disrespectful way, but if I get rejected a few times by a few different women, and I'm getting the same message that they're just not interested, maybe as a guy that allows me to take an introspective look and say, well, what is it that I'm doing around women that I keep getting these clean rejections? Something's not working. Maybe I need to read a book about women or do something more. Whereas if everyone kind of is nice to me and fluffs it up, it could take me a lot longer to get the feedback for change.
Mm-hmm. Can I just tell you about a situation where I feel like the universe tested my niceness?
Mm-hmm.
And see if you think I'm a horrible person or not. Okay. So because I had kind of realized this whole thing like a little bit before, like sometime like last fall, I was like, okay, I don't like attracting stalkerish, too attached people. So I need to like try to just, and also like try to be more in my feminine. I'll try to like solve everyone's problems and like help every single person. So New Year's Day, I'm here in my room. I have like a really nice view of like the street and everything here in the bay. And I saw
Sure.
this guy in the morning walking, and it looked like he was like super upset, like something bad happened to him. He looked like, he didn't sleep all night. He still had like a nice suit on, but he was like really upset, like he had been crying a lot. And he was just like, no, like kind of doing like that, like just like on the sidewalk there across the street. And I was like, okay, I want to go help him. Like, what happened? I just want to like tell him everything's gonna be okay. And like, but then I'm just like, I can't, because I know what's gonna happen. He's probably like, I mean, I know I don't know for sure, but just from my experience, I was like, he's probably gonna like, you know, have a crush on me or something like that. Not because I'm like that amazing. I'm just going by my experience, okay? That like they get really attached.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, okay, if I want to help him, I want to make sure he's okay. Like I can't, like, if I want to, I probably shouldn't do that. And so I just like kind of watched him from afar, just from my window. I'm like, I'm just gonna make sure he doesn't like, because there's a bay right across the street. So I'm like, I'm just gonna make sure he doesn't like kill himself, like jump over the
Sure.
thing or
Sure.
whatever. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of being like a little angel, like just like watching from above. And he was there for maybe like 2 hours, just like crying it out, yelling and all that stuff. I'm like, okay, I hope he's okay. But I would just like check on him. But my instinct was like to go and like try to like help him. But I was like, I wonder if the universe is testing me, like, okay, are you gonna make the same mistake again, girl, and like get this guy obsessed with you? Don't do it. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So, because I mean, he was like an adult, like it's not like a little kid. So
Yeah, that's a great example. That's a great example, interestingly. And it might be an even more interesting thing would be, let's say you were walking home, and he was the same thing, same scenario, but he was sitting on the steps, as you're going home. Would you move around him, or would you stop and check? What do you think would have been your response if he was physically in
oh
the way?
shoot. Oh,
It's tricky, isn't it?
oh man. I probably would ask him if he was okay, but like I would try to keep my distance at the same time too. Like,
Yep.
because I just would want to make sure he was fine, but if but like I probably wouldn't like get like that close to him, like, hey, let me give you a hug or something like that. Just like, okay, just
I,
making sure you're okay or something like that, just to show like some compassion, because I saw some other people that were just like walking, like nobody stopped to help, because I was watching to see how other people were reacting to, and like nobody. So I kind of felt bad, but um yeah, maybe just not be like too helpful, because I think maybe sometimes I am like, I'll give my phone number when I kind of don't want to. I'm like, why am I doing this? But I can't say no. Or like so maybe like if it got to that point where he's like wanting to exchange info, I'll probably be like, I can't, but I just want to make sure you're okay, so maybe yeah.
Yeah, I think from the sounds of it, from what you've expressed so far, it sounds like you're no muscle. You're nope, it's not happening. Muscle might need a little bit of bicep curls, a little bit of strengthening. I
Mm-hmm.
agree with the course of action you took. I think it was nice that you kind of just checked, and if he was going to like go do something really really horrible to himself, maybe you could just intervene or even call the police. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it's very important to, and this again is something that many empaths struggle with, is that they feel other people's emotions so much that they feel that it's their responsibility to fix them. And the truth is, sometimes you have to allow pain. You have to see it and let it happen, so that that pain can be resolved by the person responsible for it. Right? Maybe that guy
Mm-hmm.
just cheated on his girlfriend and he admitted it, and she dumped his ass. Right? He needs to feel some pain, which is like, pain is feedback. Like, don't do that shit again. That's stupid. You need pain. You kick your foot. Like, don't kick your foot again. That hurts. Pain is very important. It's our best feedback mechanism. And if we don't get it, we lack the feedback that allows us to shift in the perspective we want. So no, I think that's very wise. What you did is you sat back, you just kind of checked that nothing super bad was happening, but you didn't take responsibility for his emotions, right? Which means you're letting go of obligation to
Mm-hmm.
him, and you're letting him handle his own shit.
Yeah, but it was hard. Because
Yeah,
I'm usually
good on
not
you.
like that. I want to just like go and like do something, but that's why I'm trying more to like fulfill that need to like help. It's like doing more volunteer work or helping just like people who are actually more
Nice.
helpless, like kids or animals or just homeless people or something like that. But
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's just like that need, but like you have to, I guess, maybe fulfill it in other ways. Because yeah, like I was talking to a friend about like growing pains. They call it growing pains because it's painful. Like if you want to grow, it's not going to be like easy, and like if you're doing something for other people, like they're never going to do it. And then I realized like I did that for some of my relationships too. Like I was the one like taking charge of things, moving things along, and then I realized, oh, we're in this relationship mostly because of me. Like, and then I got mad because they weren't putting in any effort, and I'm like, oh, because I did a lot of,
the
I put in a
things.
lot of the effort. So
Yeah, it's worth remembering, if you're helping people because that's just you're sharing your energy around, I want to help animals, I want to help people at work, whatever you're doing it just because it lights you up. But if it ever starts to feel like a need where I need to help this person, I feel obligated to take my partner out of his pain, even though it's his pain to solve, that's your own form of neediness. Like I was actually with a client recently, and she's a big fixer. So she's been in relationships with men where she's always been the one to serve them and fix them and basically bring them up. And I said to her, "What would it feel like if you were just with a man you didn't need to fix? He just fixed himself." And she was really honest. She's like, "Honestly, Mark, I'd feel purposeless. Like, what's the point of me being there if I can't like help him?" She got so much of her self-esteem and self-worth from helping partner that if you take that away, she felt kind of worthless. So her own neediness was actually coming across in the giving. The guy's neediness was coming across in the receiving, and it created this needy coupling where as soon as she stepped away, she got really uncomfortable. But it's a good uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable she has to get used to have better relationships.
okay. So are you saying basically there's not really like a needy, like there's aren't really signs of a needy person? It's just depending on how the other person perceives it. Like you might like nobody's really needy just
Well,
compared to other people maybe.
like it's a relative concept. I do think there's such a thing as healthy needs in relationships versus unhealthy needs, which if your needs are coming across as obligations, if you're starting to feel obligated to do something, when a man, when a woman, when we do things for each other, like if you're with someone, you want to feel validated by that person, right? You want their attention, you want their affection. These are normal needs. And one of the best things you can do is simply state that, "Hey, I want attention, give me attention." Right?
Okay.
That's one of the best simple ways is to just say the need directly. But where it can get unhealthy in relationship, it's not wrong per se, but I do think it's worth considering as unhealthy, is where the needs form a codependent cycle, which means that one person's feeling obligated to meet the other one's needs, right? It could even be someone texts you and says, "Why haven't you texted me back?" Right? And you feel obligated to respond. You feel obligated to explain yourself. So the neediness has begun, and it's not a very good feeling, as you've noticed, to feel obligated.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're meeting each other's needs, it should always be from a place of choice. This is why if you and I are in a relationship and I said, "You should spend more time with me, you should love me," you're just like, ugh, like you can feel the obligation in those statements.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to make a statement that's just like, "Hey, like I want to let you know that I've just I've been feeling sad lately, and I've been feeling a lot of distance from you lately, and I want to express this. And I think it's a case because you've been working more. I've just been feeling a lot of space and some sadness around that." Notice I'm expressing the need. I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm feeling there's a need that's not being met here, but I'm not pulling you towards with obligation. I'm just expressing the need and then letting you decide your course of action. I'm just expressing, and then
Yeah, I
you,
like that
over
so
to you.
much better. Like the second way you said it, like I would actually feel like, oh my gosh, what can I do to like, help you not feel like that? Whereas the other one, I was like, oh God, like
Like,
I don't
ugh,
want to respond to this tag, like leave me alone. So
yeah, yeah, one hundred
communication.
percent.
Yeah.
100%. And neediness, it could be controlling. Like in toxic relationships, I start to control you to get my needs met. So I stop you meeting other guys, right? Because I'm needy for your affection validation to the point where I'm getting other people out, so you have to give it to me. Or it could be the opposite. I could play the victim and say, oh, if you cared about me more, you would spend more time with me, right? And you're like, see, I'm obligating you with these statements. Whereas if I'm just really honest and express it the way I expressed it before, it becomes your choice. And ultimately, meeting someone who's on a healthy, similar needs level to you is just one person expressing their truth, the other person also expressing their truth, and then seeing if you can come together as a team and meet each other's needs if you both want to, if you both choose to.
Learning so much. So, I mean, I think that's just a fundamental thing is good communication. And I mean, not just being able to like, not just communication in general, but like being able to, because you could communicate but badly, but like communicate things like right now you just showed like it's like kind of the same thing, but one was a lot better than the other one. And I feel like that's something that people just need to work on.
I think especially when you're talking to men, men very easily hear I'm doing it wrong, and they very easily hear criticism. And to be fair, women do as well. But yeah, when you're giving gratitude for the things someone is doing well, like let's say you have a love language that he's doing well in the other 4 love languages, but you've got one that is not going so well, make sure you're heaping on the praise for all the things that are going well. Because, hey, like I noticed you did this was so lovely, and this was amazing, this made me feel amazing, this made me feel amazing. Hey, I just also wanted to let you know that sometimes I feel, I just get a feeling of being left out or a bit left behind when it's not said. So I just wanted to express this just to let you know my truth. You do with that what you will. And even if you're giving feedback, say your need hasn't been met, say a person has been a bit disrespectful, maybe they've been flirting with someone else or something, you saw them at a party, you're a bit hurt by it. The needy way would be, you shouldn't be flirting like that, right? You should have more care for me. Don't do that. Like, why are you disrespecting me? Whereas the truth-speaking way would be like, hey, can I speak openly? Can I speak honestly? They say, yeah, sure. I want to let you know that at the party, I felt hurt. Whether that's right or wrong, that was how I felt at the time. And I know you didn't mean any ill intent. I just wanted to express this so it doesn't seep into resentment, that I was feeling kind of hurt when that happened, when that flirting was going on. And most times, 9 times out of 10, if it's a decent guy, he'll be like, okay, I get it. I can see how my selfishness has hurt her. How do I fix this? And I go into, okay, I can, make this better.
Okay, so since I noticed that I do attract a lot of needy people, but I don't want to, should I do I need to work on stuff, or just be like, oh, I just need to find someone who's like more like my, like, I don't know. So, because I was actually looking up like how to not attract those people anymore. Because I'm like, I'll meet a dude and he seems pretty healthy, not needy, and I'm like, why isn't he asking me out? But I'm getting asked out by these kind of. I think it's desperate.
Yeah, and one issue can be, and I'll say it to you straight, this can be a good-looking woman problem. You're a beautiful young woman, is that you will attract a lot of people that want transactions through your looks, which means that they say, okay, I want more validation. I didn't get much at high school, and so how do I get more validation? Oh, I could date someone really attractive. That would be a go. So you get people and I was working with a young firefighter, of all things, recently from the East Coast. She was absolutely, physically beautiful. But one of her issues was she too was struggling with her no muscle, with being able to just simply and effectively get rid of these people without feeling guilty about it. And the result many times is something really interesting, is when your no muscle is a little weak and when you're not good at it, is you just basically do what you did earlier, which you described, which is you kind of just end up having to shut off to everyone and just be mean to everyone. And that's effective in sort of getting rid of a lot of people. But then this weird thing happens that the people, even when you're being kind of a bitch, even when you've got the nope, full boundaries up, full walls up, the people that still try to get through it are the people that can only notice you for your looks because they haven't seen much else. So you get these kind of validation seeking, often narcissists. And by the way, narcissism is another form of neediness. You get these narcissists knocking on your door who think, well, if I date her, that would be a nice transaction to get more validation because she looked good on my arm. So it's the lack of no muscle leads to, okay, I have to shut everything up. And then shutting everything up means that the only person who tries to beat through the door are unfortunately not the best guys because they can sense the closed offness. It's usually the people that are just seeing you for your looks or for face value.
I actually was thinking about that too. Like, I'm at the point, like, I'm so tired of, because I recently went through another needy friend who got mad at me because I didn't reply like right away. And I was like, you know what? I don't even want to give anyone my phone number, like even friends. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to vet them through Instagram. Like, I will give them my Instagram first. If I see that they're not needing through Instagram, then they can have my phone number. Because now I'm just like, okay, if I give someone my phone number, even if it's a friend, it's like they think that they can access me 24/7. And I have a rule. I do have a rule where, like, I will not reply to text after 11 p.m. That's a rule I have, but I guess that's not enough. That's not a good enough rule. But yeah, I'm to the point where, like, I don't want to talk to, like, a lot of people. I'm trying to, like, protect myself, you know?
Yeah. Well, you shut yourself down. Yeah. And that's super, super common. So, I mean, you've always got to check in on your own thing and just check, well, is my neediness expectations lining up with what I want in relationship? You know, I coached a woman, she said, I don't respond to any text for at least a few days. I'm like, that's fine. You can be that way, but just understand that most guys who want a close partner that they speak to every day are going to pretty quickly pick up those vibes that you're not on their level. So you can take a personal check-in and just say, what are my neediness standards? Just sit in front of them and say, am I happy with that? Is that reasonable? And is that a reflection of what I want in future relationship? So it's worth doing an internal check-in on that and just saying, hey, I'm not being super avoidant. I'm happy with where I'm at.
I think also
And assuming that's the case,
you don't want to come off as needy too, because you know how it feels to, like, have someone on you. So it's like, you don't want to do that to somebody else. I think that's the other thing too. It's like, okay, I don't want to come off as needy. You know, if I do feel like I do want to reply sooner, but then I'm like, I don't want to come off as needy. So I'll wait like a couple hours or something.
The thing I always say to that is, are you needy?
Well, it's more like, because it's more like I'm just, like, excited. No, I don't feel like that all the time. Like, I can wait. Like, I don't really have a problem waiting because, like I said, I'm usually, like, I'm not really, like, checking on my phone for texts. I always have something to do. So it's like the few times that I do happen to see it come in, I'm like, but sometimes I won't even read it right away. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to read it right away because then I'm not going to want to reply. So I'm just going to go and do something else. Like, I don't have a hard time waiting. You know, it's exciting. You do kind of want to reply right away, but I'm like, I'll just, like, go and, like, do something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, and see, because you've experienced such neediness and struggled with it, now you're actually kind of holding yourself back because you don't want to be needy. You're like, well, I don't want to be to this person what that dude was to me. And you end up shutting down some of your excitement and enthusiasm. And people can sense that. They can sense when your feminine energy, when that enthusiasm, actually, no, I won't. I'll wait a few hours. If you're genuinely not needy, here's the cool part. If you're genuinely not a needy person, you can do needy shit.
Oh.
Right? Like, I had a partner who would text me like, hi, I want attention. I miss you, all in capitals. Right? Now, you look at that on paper, that's a needy text. But she's not a needy woman. She's got her own shit. I know she's got a job. She puts her phone away. She has healthy priorities. So she can do something that might be perceived as needy if you just look at it on paper. But because I know she's not needy, that's just funny then. It's just kind of cool. She's just expressing excitement and needs. So when you're really confident with this, if you're saying, hey, you're not needy, like you're not a needy person, then it's not going to come off as needy, right? Guys are going to figure out over time you're not a needy person. So you can do the same thing that a quote unquote needy girl would do. And guys, as they get to know you, will realize it's not coming from a needy place because at the core, you're not a needy person.
I hope you guys are learning something too. I'm learning a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, you can share that. Absolutely. and this is where, like what we were saying before, once you've checked in that hey, I'm happy with where I'm at, I'm happy with, taking a day or whatever to respond sometimes, or responding enthusiastically at other times. Once you've got that, the really key piece is to then not let someone else's expectations seep over and cause you discomfort, headaches, annoyance, right? Because if I set my thing, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the type of person that responds twice a day on average, and then just put my phone away. Cool. I'm happy with that. You're still going to get people who expect your response on the hour. You're going to get some needy narcissists. Everyone is going to get these people. The pain comes, and the temptation to shut yourself down comes when you're buying into that. And when you feel kind of bad, like they're like, oh, you should have replied sooner. And part of you is like, oh, should I have? Oh, I don't feel like this kind of sucks. Like, no, I don't reply that soon. And you feel like you have to explain yourself. You throw that one. And then someone else needy comes in. You're like, oh, now I feel shit again. And then you're like, oh, you got to fuck it off. Not in a bitchy way, just in a like, it's not my problem what your expectations are way. It's genuinely not.
That's the hard thing, because you talked about how, a really good way for someone to express their needs, but for someone who wants to tell the other person the opposite, like, I don't need as much, like, it's hard because, okay, the last friend that I had that happen to, I tried to explain just through a text, because I honestly did not feel like being on the phone. Like,
yeah.
I was like, I have so many other friends that they don't get butthurt. I didn't use the word butthurt, but that's just like, they don't get upset if I don't reply right away, and I don't get upset either. Like, we understand we're busy.
What did the person send you? What did they send you that stimulated this?
God, do I have to actually read it? It was like a month ago.
Or just roughly, like.
But it was kind of like a passive aggressive, like okay, I had one. This was another one too, but she wasn't as hurt, but she did kind of make a little, oh, so you replied 2 days later, ha ha ha, like a little passive aggressive thing. I'm like, okay, so it bothers you. All right. So noted.
See, I just wouldn't even respond to that. I wouldn't. Absolutely not. I don't want to reward that behavior
and we're friends. We're not even dating. I was like, okay, what if I had a boyfriend right now? Would they get mad because I was spending more time texting him? Because like, I feel like with a relationship that's a little different, like I would probably respond a little bit sooner to them. But with friends, it's like, okay, so I have a lot of friends, so I would go crazy if all of them acted like that. Like, I cannot respond to every single person every single day. I'm busy. I'm doing a lot of things. If you can't respect that, like, I have other friends who do, And I explained, oh my gosh, it's been a while, so I'm just like looking back at the text. Okay, she sent me some like funny thing, and then I didn't respond for like, was it a day or two? Okay, it was 3 days. Apparently that's a crime for a funny gif. For not responding to a funny gif, 3 days. I was also sick too. And then I asked her, how are you doing? I hope you're okay, because it was like during quarantine. Yep. And then, oh, I'm doing okay. How are you? I responded to you, but I didn't hear back. And then I like basically, I don't want to read the whole thing, but I was like, I was like, I'm not doing well. And I had already told her this before. I was like, that's not really my style to reply right away, because like I'm actually doing other things, not like I'm waiting by my phone for texts. And also I was trying to rest because I wasn't feeling good. And I was like, it's nothing against you. I just like, I don't like to be on my phone all the time too. It stresses me out. So like constantly be on my phone.
See how you spend a lot of time explaining yourself. Just stop doing any of that.
Oh,
you can save so much energy by just not explaining yourself anymore. You can throw them a quick thing, which is like, hey, I was busy, or hey, sorry,
because I felt like
a bit sick.
Like she didn't get it.
Yeah, and see, it's the thinking. This is important. It's the thinking that she has to get it that's fucking you up. She doesn't have to get it. She can think you're the craziest, psychoest, stupidest bitch, whatever, right? They don't have to get it. I don't sit there trying to explain physics to my cat all day, because she's just not going to get it no matter how hard I try, right? Trying to explain your set of neediness to someone who is a totally different neediness frame to you, it's probably like trying to explain physics to a dog. You're just going to sit there all day like, why aren't you getting this? Like, I need to, can't explain it. You got to be okay with people not getting it,
So what would be a good way for those of us like how can we say like I just don't reply right away? Like that's just not my
Uh,
style or
what would be an example? Um, yeah,
like
that
when someone's
like
like makes a joke or just brings up the fact that we didn't reply right away. It's like I think it's like their way to like make us feel guilty like
right,
yeah,
right.
it's like
Yeah, I think either not replying or just simply saying what you said there, which is, yeah, I don't really reply away, not my style. Just not buying into any of that frame, not buying into I have to explain myself to you. I should test you with this. I should just like send you needy text for a few days and just you're just like, I don't have to
yeah, I need
explain
some
myself
help.
to you now. Like I have no obligation to explain myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and it sounds like for you, it sounds like growing up, you always had to explain yourself. You always had to, you had
Yeah.
people encroaching on your space. You had to constantly explain yourself. You don't have to explain shit to anyone. You do
Yeah.
not owe them any explanation. And as a kid, you were probably made to feel bad when you didn't explain yourself. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to have privacy. So I had to explain everything. I couldn't keep anything private. If
Yeah,
I kept things private, that means I was a jerk or something like that. So,
there you go.
yeah.
So privacy or not explaining myself equals I'm a jerk is the underlying belief, which is not true at all. You will never ever be able to explain yourself, especially to people who really aren't in your frame. Like trying to explain this to a needy narcissist would just be like hitting your head against the wall. They're just not going to get it. So don't waste your energy. And when you let go of that, you'll have a lot more energy and easier time just saying no so that you can stay open to the good people you do meet along the way.
Oh God, I'm seriously trying not to cry right now. Like, I'm trying not to cry. Trying to be
Ah,
professional.
ah,
Bringing up so many things
express,
right now.
express. You're allowed to, yeah, you're allowed to let that go and
That's
just
the other
say,
thing. I wasn't allowed to cry. Well, I cried a lot, but every time I cried, I was made to feel like too
right,
sensitive.
it's it's
But that's
it's
I feel
beautiful.
like that's something that empaths. I think that they grow up with like your feelings are like you're being too sensitive. You have to care about other people, put them before themselves, like put them before yourself. So you kind of neglect yourself because at you're putting other people ahead of you. But throughout the last year I've been working on that, like, oh, I am worthy of
Awesome.
like taking care of myself and doing nice things for myself. Like one thing I did that I cried. It's just really dumb because like people are like, why are you crying over this? But like I always like I have flowers here. Okay,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
cry. But
You're allowed
it's
to cry.
it's
It's normal.
decorative. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It just looks nice. And
Yeah.
I grew up, like with my parents. They're very frugal, especially my dad. And like everything you had to buy had to be like some kind of it had to be practical. You couldn't really just buy something just because it made you happy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's kind of how I grew up. I was very like frugal. Like I would only buy things if like they serve some kind of purpose, even though I might like it, but I'm like, oh, it doesn't really like it's not really useful practically. So I wouldn't, but I'm like, you know what? I like flowers. I like nice fluffy pillows. They make me feel good. So I went to Ross and I bought myself like flowers. I have several in my room. I bought myself like a decorative pillow, which I never would buy. And I was like crying. So I was like, my mom, if she knew I was buying this, she'd be like, what's the point of this? Why are you spending money on that? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, just because I like it, it makes me happy.
It's
Like
beautiful.
I felt like it was so hard because it's just
Yeah,
freaking flowers and a pillow, but like I felt like I could never buy like nice things like that for myself, but
it's
it made me
beautiful.
happy, but it was
Yeah.
hard.
You gave
So,
yourself permission. And
mhm.
and it's so beautiful to see you just feeling, right? We as men come to you like we usually create the physical safety for you, which is if we're walking through a dark alley or if there's a threatening physical situation, we often even create the physical space. Traditionally, men have been the breadwinners type thing. And so we kind of physically, it's kind of like you are in our arms, we catch you. But emotionally, it's the other way around, right? When we
Mm.
come to you and when we are divulging or when we enter vulnerability, we need to know that you've created space for us. We need to be able to fall into your arms emotionally because as soon as if we sense that you're not accepting of that in us, we're going to pull back and we're just being, okay, I can't show her a vulnerable side. So this is the difference between, let's say, you've been hurt by a guy and his selfish actions in some way, one response is to tell him, you shouldn't do that, like angry, you should be a better boyfriend, da da da. Or the other option is to just let yourself feel and cry and just show. And I guarantee he's going to want to come to you, and he's going to want to fix it and make it right. And he's going to get the feedback through you being comfortable with your feelings. So yeah, man, cry, express it. Men want us, men adore this from you. And it's, as Brene Brown says, what makes you vulnerable makes you beautiful.
Oh. Okay, so can I have one other question. Sorry, I'm trying to take too much of your time.
No, we're right. I left time after this, so we got plenty of time.
So I was talking a few years ago. I was talking to another friend. It was kind of like we both had a mutual friend. Like we had just met. We were driving to his wedding, and we were talking about this. How I'm like, I'm good. I don't have to hear from a guy like every single day. Like I know they're busy. I'm busy. It's fine. And she was like, oh well, my fiance and I were both needy, so like it works out for us. And they're married now, so that's good. But so
nice.
So is that, I guess like maybe people who are kind of more like they need more contact, they just like maybe find out what what's it, attachment style is, and then maybe find someone who has the same one, or like
not necessarily, but being aware of it's just a really good start, because if you lean more avoidant, then you will have to get comfortable with someone having needs, that they're going to want to most likely meet from you. And those needs could well be healthy, even though they feel needy to you. Whereas if you're more anxious leaning, so you lean more in, you might find that, okay, I'm realizing that I'm leaning on a partner for certain emotions that I could take more responsibility for. So you start to learn to lean back a little bit. But it's beautiful what you've got. Again, it's about what feels right for you. Logically, you might say, okay, I don't need to hear apart from that often, but how often do you feel like if you had a partner you're really close with, what would make you feel good in terms of connection to, what would it be for you? How often would you want to like feel his either attention or a little message or something? What would feel good for you?
I think 2-3 days.
2 to 3 days?
I think, yeah, I think 3 would be my max if I'm like kind of getting serious with somebody, because then I'd be like, what? Like, because a guy I was seeing for a while, he told me he wanted me to be his girlfriend. Okay, so we were already there. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's a different standard where, that's different from a guy you're just kind of seeing. Like, I'm not going to expect too much. Like, I'll be crazy to be like every day when we like just went on one date. No. Sure. So I'm like, okay, you said you want me to be a girlfriend. Cool. So, then I didn't hear from him. I'm very patient. So I didn't hear from him for like 4-5 days. At 4, I was like, okay, maybe like something's going on. I'm not going to bother him. And then on the 5th day, I'm like, okay, I'm like, is everything okay? I try not to send a lot of like very long texts. So I was like, oh, I just checking in, just want to make sure everything's okay. And then like we actually had a talk about like, because I was like, okay, you said you want me to be your girlfriend, but it's kind of weird for me when I don't hear like anything like in like 4 or 5 days. And then he said
so weird.
Yeah, and then he said, okay, well, I'll try to work on it. And then like I was like, okay, cool. And then the same thing happened again. And I was like, it didn't really last. It didn't really last because I was like, I told him, I was like, you said you wanted me to be your girlfriend, but I don't feel like your girlfriend.
Right.
That's what I said, because I don't hear anything.
Because he's leaning out. He's more avoidant than you in that situation. Right. So you became quote unquote the needy one relative to him, right? Because he was so leaning out that you're just like, this doesn't feel right. Like this is inadequate. And like it sounds like your friends, they've found a good space where they meet each other's needs. And further along, let's say you had a fiance, what would be your normal? What would you like that to look like in terms of connection?
I think once you're at that stage, I mean, I feel like once a day would be good.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple times if you have more time, if you do have more free time, cool. But like, I just don't want, because I feel like whatever a guy has going on in his life, the activities, hobbies, like that's one of the things that makes me attracted to them in the first place. And I've just been in relationships where literally the guys will give up everything. They'll give up their friends, they'll give up their hobbies, and then they'll be like, because I want to be with you all the time. I'm like, I don't want to be your whole life. Like, no, that's what made me attracted in the first place. I don't want you to be home 24/7. Like, it would make me so mad. I would come home like, they're still here. And I would try to push them like, hey, don't you want to like hang out with this friend? Like, you haven't seen them in forever. Like, you know, just trying to gently like encourage them. And they're like, no, I'm good. I just want to be with you. I'm like, I'm like, hey, why don't you do that thing that you used to do all the time? They're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no. Why?
Yeah, and it sounds like your friends have had a really good balance with their relationship where they've just found a good match for them, and whatever you feel, however much you want, it's on you to express that without obligation, just simple expression, and your partner to do the same thing. And hopefully there's a match there, or if there's not a match, that you guys can work as a team to create a match there where both people's needs are met by the partner.
But don't you think it's bad when guys do that? Or not just guys, but anyone who gives up like their friends or their hobbies for a partner? That, don't you think that's not healthy? Or am I
100%.
crazy?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm curious as to where that first started happening in the relationship. Like, what was the first thing that, you know, he gave up, or when was the first little, because that's a sign of someone who's quite codependent leaning and will end up in.
And that's been seriously pretty much every boyfriend except one that I've had. Even my first one. He's super nice, very nice, but the first time I saw, like, it was in high school, and I hung out with different groups. We had one group, it was like our mutual friends, and then I would hang out with other groups during lunch because I wanted to hang out with all my friends. So I'd kind of like take turns, like, okay, this day I'm going to hang out with this group, then this group. And then, you know, we had that same mutual group. And then one lunch, I was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with these friends. See you later. And then he's like, can I come? I'm like, I kind of wanted a break. In my head, I'm like, I kind of wanted some space from you.
You're too attractive.
And then I was like, oh, okay, sure, you know. And then like when I would hang out with other friends, he wanted to come to each one. I was like, I can't. And then like we saw each other at school, and then he wanted to like talk on the phone like as soon as we got home. I'm like, I just saw you, like give me time to breathe. You know?
Yeah. And so it sounds like just for you being really, really ruthless, spotting this early and acting on it. Because every woman does interact with these guys, but not every woman ends up as far down the line with them as you do. So you've got to have really good early boundaries where you sense this and like, this isn't.
I think because a lot of times like now, you know, I'm older, so I feel like I can recognize it earlier, but like back early on, like these needy things come off as like, oh, that's so romantic. It means he really likes me. So you accept it. You're like, oh, wow, he's so sweet. And then you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. like, you know, standing outside with the boombox, like in the movie, that's cool. But in real life, I'd be like,
right? We're all raised with these ideas of these codependent versions of love that are really built around neediness and dependency. And yeah, in high school, it seems kind of romantic, but it's not. Well, like, it might be romantic, but it's not healthy.
He gave up his friends and hobbies for me. How, you know, he must love me. It's like, no.
He's just really needy.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's not good. So I think that's probably why I've been single for a long time, because I feel like I have been better at recognizing just like warning signs. So now I'm like, so it makes me single for longer because like I'm weeding people out a lot faster.
Yeah, that's good.
Instead of realizing like after getting in a relationship with them, like after it's too late, like what?
Yeah, good. Awesome. Save time. Huge save time. Yeah, just make sure you keep your heart open as you're single, because the temptation is, if you have struggle with boundaries, to just go, fuck it, I'm just going to shut it down because there's too much obligation, always needy guys expecting me to respond. I have to prove myself. And that weight will just be like, you'll just be like this. You just shut yourself down. As opposed to if you're just, these needy guys aren't my problem. They're always going to be there. I don't have to explain myself. I'm just going to filter in the healthy ones. You'll be able to stay open to those really great guys.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if this might help too, but I feel like maybe just taking your time getting to know somebody before getting a relationship, I feel like that would help. Because I also noticed, because I'm looking at all these patterns, because I'm like, I want to stop this pattern, you know, so I'm like, what am I doing? You know, what's going on? And I feel like another pattern was in pretty much all the relationships we became official like really fast. in
Mm.
not like in a week, but I would say definitely less than a month. And now I'm just like, no, like I'm gonna like not even be official. I like maybe 2 months, maybe longer. I'm just like, I'm just gonna get to know you and like see,
Nice.
because I feel like that's how the needy people, like they'll trap you because it's like, oh, I got her, like right away. And when you're younger, you think it's like, oh my god, so romantic, they're really into me, and it's like, oh shoot, what did I do? Like I'm trapped.
Mm.
In my opinion. So now I'm like, I'm just gonna take it slow, just get to know people, see.
Yes. Yeah, sounds super healthy. Relationships are so much about seeing what's healthy and about being able to filter in what's healthy and filter out what's not. That's really the whole thing. And if you're single, it sounds like you're doing a lot better of a job at filtering out what's not. So that's huge. Now it's just to go, okay, well, what is really healthy? How can I make sure that a guy is as healthy and into his own life? You know, it feels like a friend. It feels like a really good, normal friend that I have sex and polarity with,
Yeah.
right? Rather than this obsessive, addictive, so romantic idea that we so culturally get wrapped up in.
Yeah. So anyone who makes single people feel guilty, at least we're not stuck in toxic relationships. So that's all I have to say. Is what
100%. There's a lot of
happened.
people in relationships who should be single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I'm kind of thankful in quarantine that oh my gosh, if I was stuck with somebody right now that was so needy, I would want to kill them. Like, oh, so I'm so happy about myself. Oh, I mean, maybe if it was with the right person, it would be great. But like with the people I was with before, I'd be like, can I please leave? Like, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Quarantine is testing a lot of couples for space, no matter how good they are. So it's showing up the cracks that might have been harder to see before.
so it's doing some people some favors.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
All right. So I feel like I already had you on for a long time, but I appreciate your time. Um, before we go, if there's any other, final words you want to say, and also just anything you're working on, talk about your YouTube channel and book.
Yeah, check out the channel. The book's now been released as well, and you can grab a free copy of the first chapter from makehimyours.com.au/book. You can probably put that down in the bio. Yeah, it's funny. My new coaching programs are all about breaking patterns and about doing a really deep dive into, well, what's created your pattern? What are we going to shift to in the future? And then basically making that a reality. The two
Mm.
really key pieces are not doing the old pattern, and this is the tricky part, is staying open so that you can create new patterns, healthy patterns with the right men. Because it can be easy, as we've said, to stop your old pattern by just putting your head in the sand, closing off and staying single. But the art and the finesse is actually to have brilliant boundaries such that you can be totally open, but also ruthless with your actions in getting rid of the wrong people.
Wow.
So that's been, if you want to know more about coaching, you can shoot me an email, mark@makehimyours.com.au, doing a deep dive with some amazing ladies at the moment on that. And yeah, final thoughts on neediness. Trust your instinct would be my final thought with it. If things are starting to feel like obligations, you've crossed into neediness and something needs to shift.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, because I feel like, in my opinion, okay, I feel that people that I think are a little bit too needy, they're also a little bit insecure, or they don't have much of a life. Is that bad? Is that bad for me to say? Like, they need to like be more, have more things going on, and not, I guess, need so much validation from other people. I actually wrote, not that like that's really like, I don't know, because I mean, I'm human, so once in a while, yeah, you do want some validation when you post something, like you want some likes, and we're like, nobody's liking my stuff. So I wrote on my wall, and some of the things I wrote for myself, I wrote, you don't need you don't need anyone to validate you but yourself. So I put that, so it's like, I don't really care what anyone thinks,
Nice.
So I feel like maybe some of the people that are like that, I feel like they need constant validation, but it's just like a need that they have, like that's a valid need for them, like it's just.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be remiss to say that my girlfriend doesn't validate me. You know, I think, in fact, it would be remiss to say you could live a life without, and possibly the exception could be like a Buddhist monk could live an entire life without any external validation. But I think that would be a lifetime of work to not have a psychological need like that met. So I'm not anti-needs per se or at all. I think those needs can be important. You've got to check in. How am I getting my needs met? Right? Am I getting validation largely from myself is a great source, but also from doing things that, you know, help the planet, things that seem healthy, things that I'm proud to say, yeah, this validates me. I helped women get great relationships, and I am validated by the success they've had. So check in on your validation source, and then check in on how you're going about it. Are people feeling obligated? Because what you want to do is you want to filter a life where the validation is chosen by the parties that come in. Right? And no one feels obligated to work with me on their relationships. They choose to come to me, they pay me, I get them results, and I'm validated. We're both validated in the process. So there's no obligation on either side of that. So no one perceives the relationship as needy. It's when you cross into either unhealthy way to meet the needs, validation's a good example, or people are feeling obligated to meet the need, but they're not choosing its obligation. That's when you'll be perceived as a needy and potentially insecure person.
All right. Well, if you want, more of Mark's awesome advice, check out his channel. He has a lot of great videos. So many. You can spend all the rest of quarantine just watching all of it, and you'll become so much more knowledgeable. So check them out, and thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure catching up with you.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe one day we can do like an in-person episode.
I'd love that. Ultra Miami reunion.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And, make sure to connect with us on our social media. I'll post that in the show notes and in the video description on YouTube. And have an awesome week. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.